for joining us, and have a wonderful evening, and join us tomorrow on our sunrise safari.
Good afternoon, WildEarth fans, and welcome to another awesome episode of Penguin Beach. My name is Byron, and I'm joined by Jason behind the lens, and we are down here at Oyster Catcher Cove today, chosen by Jason. Jason really misses Oyster Catcher Cove, and I must say I'm very excited to be here today. We are, of course, coming to you live, and we would love to hear from you. Please send us your comments and questions over Twitter by using the hashtag @WildEarth. You can also register on the WildEarth website and post your comments and questions under the live feeds. And if you're under the age of 18, please pop us an email to kids. Why have I'm failing very hard and stumbling over my words. Please send us an email to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. I got it eventually. But let's check out what the penguins are up to down here at Oyster Catcher Cove. Some Egyptian geese flying around there. I always enjoy getting tongue-tied. Something that actually happens quite often to me in my life. Very nice to have an Egyptian goose hanging around with us today. That looks like the female. There is another individual just behind us on the rocks, and this individual was making quite a loud noise and has left the rocks and headed over to the area where the penguins nest to graze on some vegetation. Such beautiful looking ducks. They are in fact ducks and not geese, known as shell ducks. And look how well adapted that bill is to its feeding method. Nice and short and stout, very powerful. There are serrated edges on the sides as well, and this enables this Egyptian goose to tear off bits of vegetation. It is another fantastic day down here in Betty's Bay with regards to the weather. We had a scorching day yesterday, and we are greeted with sunshine and no wind again today. What a pleasure early winter has been. There are some clouds in the sky, and they are cirrus clouds, and that generally indicates that there is a cold front on the way. And I know that tomorrow we are expecting the winds to blow and rain to accompany those winds in the afternoon. Let's head over to the official weather forecast and see if we can expect any rain today, but I highly doubt it. It's looking like a stunner. .23 degrees and partly cloudy. Now, the weather forecast is correct today. I know yesterday the weather said it was going to be partly cloudy and we had bluebird skies. So there are definitely clouds in the sky today, and I believe that 23 degrees Celsius is the warmest it's been over the last week or so. Typical prefrontal conditions down here in the Western Cape. You can actually look towards those mountains, and when you see a haze like that in front of the mountains, you know that there is absolutely no air movement whatsoever. And the ocean looks like a sheet of glass today. Sarah, we are so happy to have you here, and thank you so much for sending your comment in. As you can see, there is a large waddle of African penguins down here at the Oyster Catcher Cove, and they are in very close proximity to one another. And I'm pretty certain that we can expect to observe the penguins bathing today, and also standing very, very close to the water to cool off during this hot winter's day.
My favorite thing about WildEarth are the animals and the interaction and the ability to wait and watch and not rush off. You get to watch their behavior and learn about the individuals. I would like to see the hyenas at the hyena den, and I have. Look at that. If I could be any animal, I would be a cheetah. I would love to run fast.
Our Western Cape coastline is graced with the Cape fur seal. This playful species is curious and entertaining. At Hout Bay Seal Rescue Centre, seals in need are rescued, fed and nursed back to health by our well-trained team of dedicated staff and volunteers. This wonderful legacy of the centre is continued as these protected creatures are rehabilitated and released back into the wild.
As we were observing those two individuals, they looked skyward, and I believe that I saw a bird in completely white plumage land close to that waddle of penguins at Jacuzzi, and in fact we have yellow socks that has arrived at Jacuzzi to hang out with the African penguins. I'm not accustomed to seeing the little egret along the rocks on this stretch of the colony. We generally see yellow socks around the left wing and hideaway and towards the slipway, hunting in the shallow pools. Hello, Virginia, and welcome to the show. And thank you so much for that very, very interesting question. Virginia would like to know if the change of season affects any of the birds along the coast. So we do have migratory birds that can be seen along the coast during the summer months. The barn swallow, also known as the European swallow, occupy this area in summer, and they love to fly low over the vegetation and hunt insects. And we also have another species of swallow known as the greater striped swallow. And because of the changing of weather, mainly a decrease in photoperiod, so the days becoming shorter and shorter and the temperatures cooling, that has resulted in those birds heading back north, the barn swallow into the northern hemisphere, and the greater striped swallow further up into Africa. What happens with the penguins during this time is that it actually cues them to breed. So the penguins line up the breeding season with the cold weather, and that is because it is easier and less taxing on the adults to raise their chicks. If they have to sit on eggs or brood their chicks during the hot weather, they often suffer from heat stress, and this is why they will nest during the colder times of the year. Not all of them. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. The bank cormorants also time their breeding season with the cooler temperature. So there are definitely changes in movements with regards to the migratory species and changes in behavior with regards to the breeding. A very, very interesting question, and thank you so much for interacting with us. We really, really enjoyed it. We've got an interesting question from Beamer Smith, and I believe that Beamer Smith has asked if there is a cooling breeze coming off the ocean today. So the little breeze that we are experiencing is actually blowing onto the shore, so off the sea onto the shore. And it is cooling down the penguins as well as Jason and myself ever so slightly. It doesn't have the same cooling effect as a strong southeast wind would have in summer, but it is providing us a little bit of respite from the weather conditions that we are experiencing today. And the light has actually just changed a little bit. The clouds have become a lot thicker overhead, changed from cirrus clouds to cirrostratus clouds, and it's created a blanket which has resulted in lower light conditions, and it is blocking the harmful rays of the sun. I'm actually feeling just a little bit chilly at the moment. It's amazing when the sun disappears, especially during winter, how cold it can get so suddenly.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the Wild Earth Explorers page. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
Hukamore. Oh, here's an impressive looking male leopard. Look at that neck on him. He just looks ready for a fight.
This is only the third time that we are seeing him that is known as the Hukamori male, and he certainly has a lot of character and atmosphere.
This is gorgeous. Hukamuri having a drink at one of the little seasonal pans.
Isn't he absolutely gorgeous? Compact, powerful, focused. I love it.
Along with the abundance of grazing, there's also a lot of kelp flies and sand fleas that the Egyptian goose can snack on. Hello, Quinton, and thank you so much for that question about the beautiful Egyptian geese that we are observing. So, to my knowledge, Egyptian geese do not eat any specific plant to help with digestion. Birds, of course, lack teeth, and that is why they have a muscular stomach. So they help to break down food by contracting that stomach. And many birds will often eat stones as well to aid in digestion. But I haven't heard of Egyptian geese focusing on a specific plant that will assist them with digestion. So birds have very, very strong stomachs that can contract. And you can imagine eating food without teeth and not being able to grind up the food before it enters the stomach can be quite challenging. And that's why they have evolved such a muscular stomach, and that assists them with digestion. Of course, as the old saying goes, digestion starts in your mouth, and that is very, very true. But this goose is really enjoying itself. What I've noticed about a lot of the species that hang out on the shoreline around Stony Point, I'm not referring to the penguins or the cormorants, but they do not have to expend a lot of energy and time into foraging. It seems that the food is always right in front of them. This goose hasn't really moved much. Of course, it is expending energy by opening and closing its bill and expanding its neck to get to all the food, but it hasn't really moved an inch. It has been foraging in the exact same area for quite some time now. Such beautiful colorations and different color tones of all the feathers. Look at that vertical barring down the flanks. I can't remember what, there's those pictures that you always stare at and it pops up a shape, Jay. I don't know if you remember what those are called, but that's exactly what it looks like. Looks like if you stare at that for long enough, something's going to pop out at you. Very, very cool markings. Yeah, if you stop and look at birds and one specific species and you observe them for a long period of time, you often notice the real beauty of that specific species.
Find a way into the kill to get their fill in there as well. But they're also going to be told off. See, lions are not great at sharing their food. Okay, guys. Let me just taking frustration out on the other lion, but you see, it was interesting.
Very, very beautiful, and it's very nice to observe Egyptian geese when they are displaying courtship behavior, because the males make very good use of that speculum. And you can imagine being a female goose, of course, you have your own speculum as well, but just to see those beautiful iridescent colors can be very, very attractive to the opposite sex. Hello, CNAC, and welcome back to the show. It is always so fantastic to hear from you, and thank you for tuning in today. So, I'm not too sure of the exact numbers, but I would say that there are approximately 3 pairs of Egyptian geese. So about 6 adult individuals, and then of course we have the crazy 9 as well. So I'd estimate it to be about 15. But the Egyptian goose population in Betty's Bay and throughout their range is very, very good. They are a very well represented species, and in fact are expanding their range, I would say on a daily basis nearly, as habitat modification takes place. But down here at Stony Point specifically, I wouldn't say that I've seen more than 3 pairs. But quite a healthy population for a very, very small area. Also shows how much food is available in this region to support multiple pairs of Egyptian geese. And of course, you do see an abundance of geese in areas where there are fields, like rugby fields, soccer fields, and that is where they have a large amount of grazing because there's just unlimited grass. But the coast does provide them with a lot of natural food. Just the motion of the tides and the ocean imports food onto the coastlines for various species to utilize. I must say the penguins are probably quite stoked that the sun has disappeared. I wonder if we will start to see a change in their behavior as it cools down. Maybe some individuals will move a little bit further away from the ocean, as that very, very slight onshore breeze might cool them just a little bit too much. But they are looking super comfortable. Eyes are mostly closed. Welcome back, everyone. We just seemed to lose everyone for a couple of minutes there. Apologies, but we are back in action. And this individual is actually showing some signs of heat stress at the moment. Maybe it is the after effect of the hot weather that we have been experiencing. Panting just a little bit, but looks to be rather comfortable. Has quite a good looking spot. Very cool spot amongst the rocks and a dead tree there. Probably one of the most beautiful nests I've ever seen.
All WildEarth explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly fireside chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Karula has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy who just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osana with the monitor lizard.
Osana, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osana at the moment.
Oh, just a little bit of a stumble there, but this individual has recovered very, very nicely. Hello, Tweety Kid, and welcome to the show. You are correct. They are such beautiful, innocent little creatures. And so lovely to watch them go about their business. Just the way that they waddle around the rocks and jump onto the rocks is enough to keep you entertained. Definitely one of my favorite animals on planet Earth. And I would say that the African penguin is one of my favorite species as well. I love the way that penguins look at each other and also at other species. They just have that look to say, hey, don't you dare come any closer. There's something cheeky about the African penguin. There are some beautiful penguins lying down facing us. Lovely markings on their throats. The tide is rising. We do have high tide. A little bit later this afternoon. You can see how the water is starting to wash up on the higher rocks. That individual might be on an island very soon. But fortunately there's not a lot of swell, so I'm sure it will be 100% fine, and luckily penguins can navigate in the most treacherous waters as well.
In the woodlands of Juma lives a lion pride with a taste for buffalo.
Look, 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 this is insane. Now, this is what I was saying about lions and buffalo. It's absolute pandemonium.
WildEarth have been privileged to follow the Nkuhuma pride for many years. One of the most loved cats in the pride is Amber Eyes. She was not successful in rearing her first 2 litter of cubs and was seen as an aunt to the other youngsters. Then eventually, towards the end of August 2019, we found her with 4 tiny cubs of her own.
I'm not going to come too close because I know you got your babies. And hello, you old friend. Isn't she spectacular?
Oh, look, it's just too special. She's such a fantastic mother.
Look at that, isn't that incredible?
Nice wet plumage. Amazing how the water can just run straight off their feathers. And this is a very good example of how birds use a special gland called the uropygal gland or preen gland to cover their feathers in oil. And that really assists with the waterproofing of their feathers and allows them to head out offshore for extended periods of time. It's amazing the adaptations that animals have gone through to occupy a specific environment and be successful there. Can see the water on the flippers as well. Of course, the flippers have minute little feathers all over them. And are very important because the flippers enable these penguins to head out offshore and swim over long periods of time. The sun is just starting to come. Hello, Yolanda, and welcome to the show. So yes, the pink bare patch of skin above the eye does get darker as the individual gets hotter and their body temperature increases in heat. And that will become a very, very rosy pink. In winter, on the very, very cool winter days, we will often see that bare patch of skin is a pale pink, very, very pale. And then on the very, very hot days, it is a rosy pink. And that is a result of the blood being pushed very close to the surface, causing that very, very red color. And that, of course, brings the blood into contact with the external environment that helps the penguins cool down. So it can be very noticeable during hot periods. And that pink is very striking at times. You'll notice that this individual doesn't seem too heat stressed. Of course, it is hanging out right on the water's edge. So it is quite cool down there. We are going between sunlight and cloud cover at the moment. So the temperature has actually started to fluctuate quite a lot. And with this individual being right on the water's edge, it is nice and cool. And you can also see that this individual has just got out of the water, as there's some water droplets glistening on the feathers. So it has a very, very comfortable body temperature at this time.
My favorite thing about WildEarth are the animals and the interaction and the ability to wait and watch and not rush off. You get to watch their behavior and learn about the individuals. I would like to see the hyenas at the hyena den, and I have. Look at that. If I could be any animal, I would be a cheetah. I would love to run fast.
Our Western Cape coastline is graced with the Cape fur seal. This playful species is curious and entertaining. At Hout Bay Seal Rescue Centre, seals in need are rescued, fed and nursed back to health by our well-trained team of dedicated staff and volunteers. This wonderful legacy of the centre is continued as these protected creatures are rehabilitated and released back into the wild.
Scratching its plumage and its skin with its very sharp claws. The penguins do really seem to enjoy the wave action, and I believe it's because the water movement helps them to clean themselves a little bit easier. You know, if you go into still water, you have to do all the hard work, whereas if water is actually moving, it will assist in the cleaning process to help get rid of any debris or guano. I'm sure that a lot of the birds are covered in guano, especially the ones that are brooding their chicks. We saw the brooding adult in the Shire yesterday have the majority of its breast and belly covered with guano, courtesy of the 2 chicks that it is looking after. It's just amazing to observe how buoyant they are in the water. They float with so much ease. Hello, it's either William or Vivian. I'm so sorry if I got your name incorrect. But you would like to know if penguins only frolic on the low tide. So penguins will frolic during all tidal movements. They'll forage on the They'll frolic on the low tide, the mid tide, as well as the high tide. Of course, during high tides where there are very, very large waves, it makes frolicking a little bit difficult. And on days like that, when there are extreme conditions, frolicking on low tide would be a much safer option for them. So we could see changes in behavior if there is a very large tidal movement as well as an accompanying large swell. But on the average day, they will frolic throughout the tides. And that is because they are such amazing marine little bullets. So nothing too much phases them unless the conditions are very, very extreme. There is a kelp gull sitting on a rock quite far away to the east of the jacuzzi. Hello, Ruth. That is a fantastic question, and Ruth would like to know how much time do the penguins generally spend in the water. So penguins, the basic rule of thumb is that penguins spend more time in the water than they do on land. They of course spend more time on land during the peak molting season when they are confined to land for 3 weeks per individual. It all seems to happen around the same time between November and January. But penguins can spend days out at sea foraging. So they won't only go out for 1 day at a time. It of course depends on the distribution of the food source. If a food source is very close to the colony, then they can go out for 1 day at a time. But if it is patchily distributed and very, very far offshore, they have to make extended trips out to sea. And I would say when it comes to frolicking in the waters like they are doing today, it will depend on the ocean conditions. If the ocean is very, very rough and the weather is quite cool, frolicking would be limited. But if it is a very hot day and the water is nice and smooth and there's not a lot of waves, we'll often observe the penguins bathing for an extended period of time. So it will depend on a number of factors. Some penguins I've seen hop in the water for no more than 30 seconds to bathe and clean their plumage, while others I've seen spend close to 20 to 30 minutes just hanging out in the shallow waters just off the rocks. There is a cormorant that is hunting just off the kelp bed. They look like white-breasted cormorants. You can tell by the white on their throats and their breast.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the Wild Earth Explorers page. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
My heart rate has gone up slightly. In fact, it's gone up quite a lot. This elephant is now 2 meters from us. Okay, we might have to move here. No? Yes. Sorry, my friend, but you're about to push that onto the car. You see how cross he was that we didn't want to watch him push the tree over. That's why we moved.
We've observed kelp gull eating lobster the other day. The cormorants have such a long maneuverable neck that they can really probe the rocky crevices where the kelp forests grow to search for prey. There is an individual cormorant hanging out close to a kelp gull. That is a crowned cormorant. You can see the little crest just in front of its bill. And that cormorant is between foraging bouts and has decided to spend some time on the rocks drying off its feathers and investing some time into feather maintenance. Cormorant's feathers are moderately wettable, and if they spend extended periods of time in the water, they can actually suffer from hypothermia, and that's why they forage in these bouts. So this cormorant is going to be warming its body temperature and making sure that its plumage is in tip-top condition so that it can go out and hunt again. It follows this procedure throughout the day, and it is essential for the survival of these species of cormorants. The white-breasted cormorant surfaced all the way up by Cormorant Cove. Dark Man Lover, that is a great question. Welcome to the show, of course. Always fantastic to have you with us. The slowest flying bird. Dark Man Lover, do birds that don't fly count? Because a penguin will register about 0 kilometers per hour in the air. So my immediate go-to is the African penguin, but of course they don't fly, and I would consider that to be an easy way out. Kind of like cheating, I suppose. I know Egyptian geese can fly very, very fast. They can fly at 60 kilometers an hour for extended periods of time, so it definitely isn't the Egyptian goose. Cormorants are very heavy-bodied, and they do struggle to fly, but you know, they use the ground, what's known as the ground effect, and they utilize the air currents coming off the ocean to assist them to lift their heavy bodies. So they do still fly quite fast. I would assume that the Cape Cormorant flies faster than the other cormorants that spend more time inshore. Wow, that is a difficult question, because I wonder, all the smaller birds, how it is relative, the speed that they travel in comparison to the larger birds. Very, very interesting question.
Tingana has been affectionately known as the Duke of Djuma for many years, but his path to the throne was not an easy one. Mvula was a legend from the south.
This is the cat that I'm pretty sure Tingana was sniffing around for. That is Mvula. How exciting is this?
Eventually, Mvula lost, but his young son Quarantine started to push through from the east. At the beginning of 2018, an intruder arrived. His name was Hukamuri.
All WildEarth explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly fireside chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
Thermals or anything either. And the hardy-dar ibis is also a very large bird, heavy-bodied. Does have nice broad wings, but the wings aren't very, very long. So the hardy-dar ibis normally chugs around from point A to point B. That is definitely my final answer. This rock hyrax, I'm sure, is very upset that the sun has disappeared. If there is one animal on planet Earth that really dislikes the cold, it is the rock hyrax, or the dussie as they are known locally. What's turned from a nice afternoon sunbathing has become quite a cold time on the rocks now. This individual still doesn't look too worried. I'm looking very, very closely at this individual's upper lip because I can see the smallest little white structure I'm looking at it with my binoculars. I believe that it's incisor that is sticking out from underneath its upper lip on its right-hand side, our left-hand side. And of course, that is unique to rock hyrax and elephant, that their tusks develop from incisors, whereas a lot of other animals' tusks develop from their canines. Hello, Amanda, and that is an excellent question. So, Dussies, they don't really have sharp claws. They've got flattened toenails, pretty similar to elephants. I know elephants definitely do use their toenails to cut vegetation. I haven't seen the Dussies display that behavior, but the claws are quite flat, with the exception of the hind claws on the inside of their hind feet that they use for scratching. So they're not very good diggers. They can't really excavate burrows as such. And they're not very dexterous either, so they don't really have the digits of a primate or something like that would help them build structures. So they actually depend on a rocky environment, and it's quite typical to see Dussies on rocks, and that is where their name derives from as well, the rock hyrax. So they will use natural cavities and crevices in this rocky environment as shelter. And if you look at a distribution map for rock hyrax, you'll notice that they only occur in very, very rocky areas, and they are abundant in those areas as well. And they do not like to leave the rocks, because if they leave the rocks, they become exposed to predators because they have nowhere else to hide. Thank you very much for that really good question. Always nice to look at how an animal is designed and link it to how they live. Viv, I must agree with you there. These Dussies are so cute. They remind me of guinea pigs. They look like they are good to pet, but I assure you that they are not. But they are still cute indeed. Something special about the Dussies, and they also have a certain attitude about them. We have seen some quite raggedy looking Dussies down here at Stony Point, and the raggedy looking individuals are normally the males that get into a lot of fights for territory and harems.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Karula has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy, we just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osano with the monitor lizard.
Osano, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osano at the moment.
Forage. A little bit further down the rocks, that is where this bird would go and forage. There's a number of crustaceans known as sea slaters. There was actually a second Cape wagtail that has hidden itself in the crevices in the rocks right in front of where we are looking. You'll have to look very, very closely to find any sea slaters that individual, I'm sure, is foraging on now. Sea slaters do like the moist rocks and that area is quite nice and cold and moist. Beamer Smith, that is a great question. We don't get too many questions related to geology down here at Penguin Beach. So these are actually very, very special rocks, and the rocks that we are observing belong to a group of rocks known as Table Mountain Sandstone. And although sandstone sounds very fragile, it is quite the opposite, because these rocks were formed about 400 to 500 million years ago in an inland sea known as the Agulhas Sea. And all of that sediment accumulated in the sea and settled on the bottom and was subjected to this great force of water and caused it to compact in that fashion. So the rocks that we see down here on the coast and on the mountains are exactly the same. Of course, the mountains have been pushed up with plate movements and have shot up into the sky. But very, very special rocks. They do break down very, very slowly over time, and they derive a very, very nutrient-poor, acidic soil that a very unique vegetation type known as fynbos absolutely loves. And it is the heart of the Cape Floral Kingdom. So the rocks that we are looking at basically forms the foundation of the fynbos biome. So very, very interesting. And you'll see mostly sandstone rocks around here. There's some shale formations up on the mountains and some limestone formations and aeolianite. Limestone would be formed by leftover seashells and bones and sort of things like that that were also compressed undersea, and then the aeolianite are basically ancient sand dunes that are compressed by water and wind action. But down here at Stony Point, mostly these beautiful Table Mountain sandstone rocks.
This morning we were driving and suddenly we heard a lot of commotion. I think the wild dogs might have caught an impala then, or the leopard might have caught the impala, and as it was dragging it, the wild dog saw it, started chasing the leopard up into the tree, and then the hyenas came to steal it. But what an incredible sighting.
With the traditional stories I've learned that it does have future and a past. If you follow it, you will never ever go wrong in life. It's very important because it contains, of course, the history background and the knowledge of the bush. In every family they have so-called a tree or amarula tree. We'll go there and kneel down and talk to the tree and say, we want success in the family.
And being a food source for another organism is equally as important. The Cape wagtails are just resting up on the rocks, and why not when there is such an abundance of food pretty much directly below you. It's like having a fully stocked kitchen all the time. Paul, so they do look very, very similar to cockroaches, but they are actually crustaceans, so they will be more closely related to shrimps, crabs, lobster, for example. Even though their appearance is similar to cockroaches, they are not very closely related to them. I must say that when I first saw them, I commonly referred to them as the sea cockroach because of their physical appearance, but turns out they are actually little crustaceans. And look at them just going about their business there. They occur in very high numbers, and if you were to lift those rocks up, a number of sea slaters would be found underneath those rocks, hanging out in the cool, moist areas that those rocks provide. A lot of them are on the move currently. Of course, they choose this habitat so that they are close to their food source, and the rocks also provide them with protection from predators such as the Cape wagtail. I prefer to call a Cape wagtail an insect-eating bird rather than a predator. But it does predate. Penguins are still looking nice and relaxed down here at Oyster Catcher Cove. It's amazing how quickly the weather can change from being hot when we arrive to being nice and cool. And the penguins are definitely enjoying this. It has been a nice, relaxing day down here. I would like to thank, of course, the penguins for being here with us and for the very interesting comments and questions that the viewers provided. It really has been such an awesome show, and Jason and myself have really loved hanging out with everyone. The Sunset Safari is about to kick off, and Cedric and Igor are going to be looking for a certain spotted cat and her offspring, and Liam and Owen are going to be looking for some wild dogs, and of course Chris is going to be looking at the track. So let's see what Chris finds, but it is going to be a very, very exciting afternoon at the Sunset Safari in the Lowveld, so be sure to stay tuned. From myself and Jay down here at Penguin Beach, and of course the beautiful penguins, it's cheers for now, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal